What is going on, YouTube people? Nick Cards and Comics here. Today we got a spicy one. Anytime Paul Lesko's Twitter feed is involved, you know it's gonna be something good. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted a real short reel about this and shared some stuff on the old Twitter/X machine when this story came out late on Sunday night. I know my friend Swaggle House has done some content on it as well. But what do we have? Beckett is suing two PSA employees that both happen to be Mark Wilson, who is the head of PSA's comic book division, and West Steffen, who sounds like he is a head grader or something along those senior level grader, comic book expert. I don't know what his role is. And why, you might ask, is Beckett suing these two folks? Well, we got a bit of an NDA breach, and it is a juicy one because we get some details on behind the scenes stuff that Beckett, aka CBCS, which is Beckett's comic book division, was working on. Basically, the gist is these two gentlemen were leaving Beckett to go to PSA. They had an NDA with Beckett. This is what Beckett is accusing, I should say. You know, the trial will play itself out, innocent till proven guilty, all that sort of stuff. These gentlemen left and they emailed themselves some documents. And what the documents pertain to were basically what Beckett is saying is trade secrets involving subgrades for comic book grading and the formulas and math and how it would all work and all that stuff behind it. Now, the intriguing thing there is, as the card folks of the channel viewership know, Beckett has had subgrades with cards since day one. It is their thing. It is their shtick. Comics, they never had. They copied basically the main grading scale for comics, you know, a 9.8, 9.6, 9.4, 9.2, 8.0, et cetera, on down the line. And they use that. There are no subgrades. So apparently they have been tinkering with / working on potentially bringing subgrades to market. Now, that doesn't mean it was going to happen like tomorrow. It may never happen, but they were at least doing some work on it behind the scenes. And essentially what they're saying is, if we scroll down to the bottom of this thread, you can see here, after they found out about these employees leaving Beckett, they weren't 100% sure where they were going. They then realized that they went to PSA. After that, they did some digging, had the IT team do a little bit of digging, and they saw that they allegedly emailed themselves some emails with these topic lines: subgrades discussed for later use, spine split links and grades, guides for subgrade centering, common grader noted CGC witness signatures policy, foxing for grade, guidelines for subgrades bindery, guidelines for subgrades color revised. So this gives us a little bit of a look behind the scenes on the fact that CBCS was at least flirting with the idea of bringing subgrades to comics, and a little bit of information on what some of the stuff looks like. This was Stefan's stuff, his emails. We have grading scale there, guidelines for subgrade centering, bindery surface, CBCS subgrades fully updated, comic book training results and evaluation, production and analytics, pressing averages this year. So these were all things that these two employees allegedly emailed to themselves. So Beckett is seeking like $1 million, a temporary restraining order. And this is an interesting one here. Contacting, communicating with, or working with PSA or any PSA employee to develop or launch a comic book grading service. So in addition to cash and temporary restraining orders, they also want these people not to be able to work with PSA involving anything comic book related. So all sorts of drama here. We got Beckett going after PSA employees. Now, on paper, and we're seeing is their side. We're just seeing the suit. And I'm definitely no lawyer at all. I did watch a lot of Law and Order over my time on this planet. Most of those episodes weren't about breaking NDAs, so my legalese is a little rough on these things. It doesn't look great emailing yourself documents with those headings to your personal email addresses right before you leave the company, and then you immediately leave the company and go work for your, new competitor in the field that's entering the space. So we'll see how all this plays out. A couple side talking points here. Let's talk subgrades for CBCS / comics in general for a hot second. I honestly don't see the point. To me, it's idiotic. Why would you need subgrades for comic books? We talk about this on the card side all the time. Comic books did it right from the beginning. You have graders notes. The whole point of subgrades for Beckett subgrades on cards is so when you get the card back in your submission, you know why it got a BGS 9. Oh, everything's a 9.5, but the corners got a 9. It dropped the grade down or whatever. Or the corners and the centering got a 9. Everything else got a 9.5. It's those two things that pulled the grade down. Or if it scores really low and one thing in particular is way off, maybe a corner, maybe the surface, whatever, and it's a boat anchor on the grade, and you got a 7 on a card you thought was super clean, and all of a sudden it got a 7 on the corners and a 9.5 on everything else, or whatever the case might be, you're like, oh, it's because this corner's bent in half. You don't need that with comic books because you literally have grader's notes, which is the whole point. The grader's notes tell you why the book graded the way that it did. If you send a book in and it gets a 9.2, now I know the companies are a little hit or miss on actually posting the grader's notes, but in theory, if you send a book in and it gets a 9.2, the grader's notes should tell you why it got a 9.2. Oh, X amount of color breaking spine ticks and this, that, and the other thing. Done. Easy. You don't need subgrades. I don't understand what all the ballyhoo's about in regards to subgrades. It doesn't make any sense. You literally have the version that's better than subgrades. And from Beckett's standpoint, did you not learn anything on the card side? Like, yes, subgrades were really cool back in the 90s and early 2000s. How's that working out for you now? People want simple. They just want the grade. And then they want to know why it graded the way that it did, but give that to them in a note. They don't want a CBCS 9.8 with a 9.2 spine, a 9.6 this, and a 9.4 color, or whatever the case might be. And one of the things that I've heard on comments on both my Instagram post and on Swag's videos and some other discussions I've had with folks is, oh, it would be really nice if comics graded on centering. It would be cool to have a subgrade for centering. And if you're not familiar with comics, centering is part of it. The wrap can be misaligned, basically. And a lot of the times, if it's like an all red cover and the wrap's slightly misaligned and maybe the white, the ad on the back page was white, and that'll wrap around to the front a little bit, and you'll see like a white strip down the side, or maybe a little bit of an angle. And it really takes away from the eye appeal of the book. And you will see books like that will actively sell for slightly less than one that has a good wrap. And certain books are notorious for having good versus bad wraps, or slightly sit too high or too low. X-Men 266 is a good one for this. First appearance of Gambit on the cover. That one sometimes sits a little bit high, and you'll see like the top part of the book gets cut off the image. And I know when I was looking for mine, I purposely made sure that I got one that was centered pretty decently. But you don't need subgrades for that. You could just do that. You could just add that to the list of things that you dock points on for, and then just give it a 9.6 and say, wrap slightly misaligned, or whatever the case might be, and grade it a 9.6 and dock it, a quarter point or whatever it is that you want to do. I just don't see the purpose of subgrades for comic books when comic books already have the better version of subgrades and graders notes. I don't know. My other takeaway here is This gives me the vibes. I mean, say what you will. If these guys legitimately signed an NDA and they legitimately did this stuff, it's not a great look. We'll see how that plays out. But I think this gives us a look into, listen, CGC is a well-established monster in this category, okay? PSA entering into the space and even doing moderately well probably doesn't have a huge impact on CGC's overall numbers. It might keep them a little bit honest, but it's probably not going to drastically affect their submissions, at least for years, for at least a few years at minimum, till PSA gets established, settles themselves in the whole 9 yards. So CGC, I don't think, has a ton to worry about PSA entering the space in the short to medium term. 5, 10, 15 years from now, who knows? CBCS has a much smaller market share. They are the clear number 2 and really the only number 2. There really isn't a 3. There's a couple, but they're really not taken seriously. And they don't really have that big of market share compared to CGC. Now, PSA entering the space, if I was CBCS/Beckett, I would be worried. I would be way more worried about PSA coming in than CGC should be. Because PSA entering in could legitimately hurt Beckett/CBCS a lot. Because a lot of people that use CBCS are never CGCers, and they have never had another option to go with. Now, all of a sudden, you actually have, think about what you will with PSA, you have legitimate competition. So I wouldn't be surprised if Beckett has some good legal standing here for doing whatever they want to do. But I also would not be shocked if this was a have our cake and eat it too. We don't like that these guys left. We potentially have recourse to go after them. And as a little bonus, a little extra cookie in the Happy Meal, we get to be a thorn in PSA's side. Maybe we get to derail them. Maybe we get to slow them down a little bit. Maybe we get to, they have to start some things over again if this ends up going through and they can't hire him as their head grader. Whatever the case might be, this is going to throw some level of monkey wrench, I have to imagine, into PSA's plan. Now, maybe it has a 0.5% effect and they just step right over it and it's like nothing even really happened. It's like a pebble in your shoe. Or maybe this legitimately derails things, not like where it would go away, but just like enough to like, okay, we need to take a step back. This is going to set us back a few months. I have no idea. I haven't asked over there because I assume nobody at PSA is going to talk about an ongoing legal case. And technically, PSA is not named in this. This is against the 2 individuals, not PSA as a company. So they did not get looped into this. So fun times all around. There is a hearing later this week on this. I believe my good friend Swaggle House is scheduling some things to potentially have Paul Lesko on his channel. So look forward to that for any major updates and developments and probably a much more in-depth conversation on the legalese here. I will link to the Lesko Twitter thread in the description of this video. So if you want to go check it out and read the full thing, you can. But that is basically the gist of it. And that is kind of my 50,000 foot view take on a couple of the things here. As always, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. Ladies and gentlemen, the drama never ends. Sometimes it's between collectors. Sometimes it's between collectors and companies. This time it's basically between companies and companies. Never stops. That's all I got for you. Catch you on the next one. Peace.